another test of my audio. Taking a little ride, one of my favorite rides, doing a loop around Lake Maumelle, starting out here, going past Pinnacle Mountains Park. There's a lot more wind today than what there was the other day when I was recording. But I'm hoping that I can get rid of certain sounds, that crackling sound, but most likely I won't totally get rid of it until I get the dead cat windscreens. I thought I'd talk about how I got into motorcycling, or why I got into motorcycling, what attracted me to motorcycling. Well, it's very simple, really. My father was a motorcyclist. When he came back from Korea, before he got discharged from the Army, they sent him to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Why was that Fort Bragg, North Carolina? He bought him a 1948 Indian. In fact, when him and my mother first met, that's what he rode up to meet her at a drive-in restaurant. My father passed away when I was 12 years old, and my mother wouldn't let me have any motorcycles or mini bikes or anything like that. I had to wait until I went into the Army to learn how to ride a motorcycle, even though I had friends that had mini bikes, and we used to go to a place called Cycle Hills. They're in Toledo, down near the river. And so I guess actually I learned how to ride, or enjoyed riding first off, is riding my friends' mini bikes. But when I went into the Army, I went in at the age of 17, went to basic combat training, then I went to AIT, and then I was stationed at Fort Hood in the 1st Cav Division. The guy that I buddied up with there, a guy named Arnold, he had a CL350 Honda, and he allowed me to learn how to ride on that bike. And in fact, he let me use that bike a lot. He was dating a young girl from Copper's Cove, and most of the time, any place they went in his car, and he gave me the keys to the old Honda. Anyway, in the summer of '73, that's when I learned how to ride a motorcycle on a 350 Honda. He sold that 350 Honda over the winter, and I got hospitalized while I was stationed at Fort Hood. Came down with hepatitis, was in the hospital, and didn't have no place to spend my money while I was in the hospital. So when I got out of the hospital, I took the money I saved up and I went and bought me a brand new 1973 Suzuki TC 125, and that became my first motorcycle. I rode that thing for about 3 or 4 months and decided it wasn't big enough for me, and I took it back to the same bike shop I bought it at and traded it in on a 1971 CB350 Honda. The CB350 Honda, when I got discharged from the Army for my first enlistment, I separated before I thought I wanted a second enlistment. I left Fort Hood on that 350 Honda and headed to Toledo, Ohio on it. Almost made it. Broke down in Kentucky. Had to have someone come down in a van to pick me up, so I fell short a couple hundred miles from Toledo. But that was my first long trip, and it was a doozy. that doesn't really explain why I love motorcycling. I love motorcycling because, well, I don't know if I can explain it. But getting back to my father, he died in '67. And in 1969, there was a TV show pilot that came on. It was called Then Came Bronson. During that time in 1969, two major motorcycle movies came out. One was the pilot movie for Then Came Bronson. The other one was Easy Rider. A lot of people, they talk about how important Easy Rider was to getting them into motorcycling. But with me, I didn't see Easy Rider until I was 17 or 18 years old. But Then Came Bronson, I saw that pilot movie, and then I watched the series. Unfortunately, it only lasted 1 year. Well, Then Came Bronson, the TV series, starred Michael Parks. He played Jim Bronson, and a co-star is a Sportster, slightly customized. And I fell in love and was wanting a Sportster since the day I first saw that pilot. I wanted to get into motorcycling because I believed that was the way I could connect with my father, because he was a motorcyclist. Part of the reason I probably enlisted into the Army was because my father was a veteran, and I figured that if that experience would help me try to understand my father. But at the time, I was during the 70s, I was a small guy, usually never weighing more than 130 pounds. In fact, when I went into the Army, I had to go in on a medical waiver because I only weighed 110 when I was 17. But to me and my friends, a Harley-Davidson Sportster was a gigantic motorcycle, a powerful motorcycle. But I've always had a love for Sportsters. I've mentioned it before. The current one I have is a 2002 XL 1200S Sportster Sport, and it's red, much like the bike that Jim Bronson rode in a TV show. It's not customized as his, but I still, to me, it's a tribute to that TV show, being red. Of course, the Bronson bike was what they called Bronson red. It was more of an orange color, sort of the color that they used to paint Chevy engines, sort of the competition orange, reddish orange color. They called it Bronson red. The bike that he had, a lot of people don't realize how much it was customized. But the bike they used was an XLH, probably a 68, 69 model. The ones that had the right foot shift. They customized it by putting a 21-inch front wheel on it. Along with, if you look at it close, there's a British fender, probably off a Triumph or something of that sort, on the front, and it was chrome, which Harleys, you know, never went with chrome fenders. They cut off the rear fender, which Harley has taken that cue of the Sportsters over the last decade with the irons and others. It had boots on the fork. It had a really unique sissy bar. When you see if you've never seen the pilot, that's the only thing that you can get on DVD now. They never did release the series on DVD. But if you watch the pilot, the movie starts off, Jim Bronson was a reporter, and he gets contacted by the police that there's a guy that keeps asking for him that's going to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. When Bronson gets there, there's a scene there. You see the red Sportster with this real tall sissy bar. Happened to be that sissy bar that they put on Schwinn Stingray bikes. Anyways, his friend, before he jumps off the bridge, asked him to buy the bike back from him. Apparently Jim Bronson must have been the original owner of that bike, and he asked him to buy the bike back off him from his wife, or soon to be widow. His friend was played by Martin Sheen, and he jumps off the bridge. Well, Bronson goes back to his job. He writes a story about his friend, and the editor will not publish the story. So Jim Bronson decides to quit his job and take his motorcycle and hit the road. The pilot for Then Came Bronson is a story about a man that's taking a trip to New Orleans. Just as the story in Easy Rider are two hippie bikers making a trip to New Orleans. Big difference is in Then Came Bronson, the TV series, Michael Parks does the music in most of it. In fact, there was a couple albums produced based on the songs that he sang that was used in the movie. And Then Came Bronson, probably mostly because it was on TV, all the drug use and stuff wasn't portrayed or glorified like it was in Easy Rider. Personally, myself, Then Came Bronson pilot is a better movie than Easy Rider, even though I really enjoy the Easy Rider soundtrack. I own both movies on DVD. If you want more information about Then Came Bronson, you can Google it. There's a web page dedicated to tell you how to make a Bronson bike replica. There's a Facebook page that's called Then Came Bronson, of people that are part of the Bronson cult, that one of the reasons that they got into motorcycling, a bunch of us old folks that watched that TV series back in 69 and 70. And in some ways, my bike is my own interpretation of the bike. Where the Bronson bike's got chrome, my bike's black. If you want to know more about Then Came Bronson, Google it. Most of us old folks know about it. Most young folks don't understand it. Now we're coming up on Highway 10 here. We'll be taking a left. Taking a left back towards Little Rock. And see, we traveled 32 miles and we got 27 to get back home. So it's about a 49-mile round trip. It's not bad, little ride. Here we're coming up to Lake Maumelle. Looks like the rest stop's open. A little picnic area. I guess it's not considered a state park. They got all the state parks closed. They're going to open them back up on the 1st to limited use. Took me a little break there. Took a couple pictures of the lake. And I head back to Little Rock.